How do I start my own business?
Being my own brand would be totally legit.
I want to be the next Gary Vee.
My dream is to be on Shark Tank.
I'm just gonna Google it.
I mean, I'm awesome at social media. What could go wrong?
Oh my God.
Second Soul Studios is a full-service production studio with capabilities for photo, video, podcasting, editing, co-working, and more. Our photo-video studio has a number of different backdrop choices and props to choose from. We also have a gourmet kitchen set, or if you're an upstart podcaster, you'll love our 4-person podcast studio. So what are you waiting for? Visit secondsoulstudios.com to book a tour today.
Hi everyone, it's Kelly with Learning Curves. In the last episode, I sat with Karen Mace from Model Perfect Designs, and we touched a lot on overcoming emotional hurdles and becoming more successful and self-aware. And today, I'm here with my friend Rachael, who owns Gigglewaters in Safety Harbor. We love everything about this restaurant. My family and I go there all the time. It's so much fun.
Thank you.
Especially love movie night. Go in and watch vintage movies, and the cocktails are amazing. I'm a personal fan of craft cocktails, and your bartenders are probably one of my favorite in the Tampa Bay area.
Wow, thank you.
And you can go there for a good hamburger. It's pretty awesome.
Good. I'm glad you like it.
So, Rachael, thank you so much for being on my show today. I would love to hear a little bit about you and your business.
Sure. So Gigglewaters Social Club and Screening Room, we are a vintage kind of 1920s vibed restaurant and movie theater in Safety Harbor, Florida. A lot of people call us a speakeasy. I don't call us a speakeasy because the second you hang a sign on the door, you're not a speakeasy, right? Everyone kind of knows where you are. So we definitely borrow heavy from the 20s theme. There's a lot of kind of vintage decor and kind of our style. It reminds me of my New York roots, where all the buildings there are from the 20s, so you kind of have that feel to it.
Oh, that's great. Where'd you get your inspiration from?
My husband and I are from New York. We moved here from Brooklyn specifically, and like I said, everything there has a lot of history to it. The buildings all have history. The decor kind of feels like it does in Gigglewaters, and that's just what's there. And so we missed that piece when we moved to Florida. We wanted to kind of recreate that. So a lot of our menu borrows heavily from our favorite places in New York and our favorite dishes there, our favorite movie theater we used to go to. We kind of borrow from all of that, kind of inspired what Gigglewaters is.
And what made you come up with the idea for the vintage type movie theme?
We used to go watch. So my husband is such a movie nerd. He loves every movie ever. Terrible ones. I don't even want to say. He makes me watch really terrible movies all the time. And I shouldn't say they're terrible. I'm going to get in trouble for this. But for instance, Predator. Now maybe, okay, everyone's groaning right now. But Predator to me was a very difficult, or no, how about Escape to New York? Or Escape from New York. Great movie, I'm sure, in the 80s when it came out. But watching it now, we always talk about, like, does it hold up? Is it still good today? And when I watched Escape from New York with Kurt Russell, the hugely talented Kurt Russell, I thought it was a ridiculous film to watch in the context of 2021. So we used to watch all these old movies together, and we would try to find theaters that would show them. There was one that we used to go to in New York called Nighthawk that we loved, that we would watch these movies together, and we would just laugh and talk about whether it held up or not. And so we thought it would be really fun to do something where you could bring your kids to see some of your favorite childhood movies for the first time on a big screen. And that's kind of the genesis of that old fun movie experience.
Yeah, I love that. I'm always talking to my kids about my favorite movies when I grew up, and even trying to search nowadays with streaming, it's still kind of hard to go and find those movies. And when you take your kids to see them, a lot of times they love it.
Yes.
It's interesting.
It really is a good question, does it hold up? And it's kind of, when you watch it again with adult eyes, Labyrinth, to me, primo example of absolutely holds up. Everything Bowie does, but absolutely holds up today. You can rewatch that now with your kids and go, this is just as magical as it was, as I remember from my childhood. So it's kind of a fun way to, it's one thing to stream something at home on Netflix or to watch it there, but to watch it on a big screen and have that communal movie going experience, that's something that's magical that you don't always get to do with old movies.
Right. You can tell your kids the history.
Yeah.
Remember when Jaws came out, how it had a line going wrapped all the way around the building, all through the town, just to go in there and see that.
Yes.
It's in a beach town. Like, why are people going to see Jaws in a beach town? You crazy.
My husband's dream is when my kids are old enough to see Star Wars for the first time, for them to experience it on the big screen and have that big wow moment. So that's what he's waiting for.
Yeah. Star Wars is still very popular today.
Yes,
so.
we show it every May the 4th, and it was actually a big deal to get licensing on that. Lucas really only licenses certain theaters for Star Wars. We had to send pictures of our interior. We had to tell them about our seating plan. So it was a big deal to get approval, and it was expensive to license to show May the 4th to show the episode 4, A New Hope, the original Star Wars. I better say correctly, or I'm going to be in so much trouble at home. But all of the movie posters we have to use are specifically licensed from Lucasfilm. So it's the classics are well protected.
I love it. I love it. So I have a question for you.
Yes.
Being a restaurant owner, I know just from talking to several restaurants, and I owned one myself 10 years ago. It's a tough business to be in. Like, I think the survival rate is maybe 10%, something like that.
Probably.
So what made you decide to go into the restaurant business?
Temporary insanity. No, it's hard to say. I love it, and I didn't think I would for a lot of reasons. So my dad owned and operated restaurants growing up, and I grew up in his restaurants, waiting tables at 14 at a place called Peg Leg Pete's here in the Oldsmar area. I grew up in that environment for a long time. He left the restaurant business, went back to school when I was doing my undergrad. He was getting his degree in counseling, and then I kind of dragged him back into it. And he used to say to me, if you ever want to open a restaurant, just take a gun and shoot yourself in the foot and it will be less painful. So somehow I disregarded that entirely and opened a restaurant and dragged him into it with me. It is tough, man. It's not for the faint of heart, for sure. It is hard work, but it is so rewarding and it is never boring. And those are things that I can't always say about a desk job, right? I love being my own boss. I love having the creative vision to take an idea to execution and be the one who's in charge of that. I love hiring new great people and giving people opportunities that maybe haven't had opportunities before and helping coach them. That's really important to me. That career pathing is really something that is meaningful to me. I love the guest experience. We've had people propose at our restaurant. We've had a wedding at our restaurant, things like that I feel like I'm a part of people's lives in a really meaningful way. And food is such a central, man, we are a divided country. There's so much tension all the time. Food brings people together.
It does.
It really does.
Yes.
Like, you can break bread with people and get to know them in a different manner. And I have come to love our community through our food. And that's kind of a neat experience, and I'm grateful for that.
I love that. And Safety Harbor as well. What a charming town.
Oh my gosh, I love it. It's such a great town. We have the best regulars. We have just the people that live in Safety Harbor are warm and supportive and welcoming and take care of us, and we take care of them. It's a tremendous community to be part of.
Yeah, I see that with Safety Harbor. It is such a charming town, and I find myself, even living in Clearwater, spending a lot of time in Safety Harbor. It's my new favorite town, I tell everybody.
Oh, that's great. Yes, it's adorable. Yeah. It's adorable.
So many fun restaurants and nightlife and live music. It's a lot of fun.
Yes, and it's a neat community too. Like, the restaurant owners, we all really take care of each other and work together. And it's just, it doesn't feel, and maybe this is more post-COVID when we all been in contact with each other more, but it feels like a community that works together and sees that there's enough for everyone. Right. Do you know what I mean? And so even the businesses work together in really neat ways, and I'm honored to be a part of that.
Yeah, that's really important.
Yeah.
Speaking of COVID,
yes,
I know we're finally getting out of it. Yay!
Yay! Thank God. Yes.
That was such a trying time for so many business owners, and Gigglewaters won our contest. We ran a contest for our restaurants, and we gave away a $10,000 marketing package. And we went around and interviewed probably 20-some different restaurants and wanted to learn more about their story. And my thing was, a lot of restaurants suffered quite a bit during the pandemic, and there's still a lot of suffering going on right now with trying to get employees and all these different obstacles you're going to have to, even now, having to go through. But we picked you because of how much you gave back to the community during that time period. It was such an impressive and wonderful story. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Thanks so much. And I have to say, winning this contest was just the coolest thing ever. Like man, it's been such a long, hard road, and to just get some good news for a minute was so wonderful. And so I can't be more appreciative or excited about that. And I just thank you guys so much. The shutdown. It was crazy. So 1 week prior to the shutdown, we had started a capital raise. We were looking to expand. We were going to open franchises, and we were doing all that. We were just killing it. We were over 30% over prior for the first 3 months of the year. And then the world stopped, and it was terrifying. And within about a week, I'd had to lay off the majority of my part-time staff. I'd all have to lay off. I'd kept my managers employed, managed to keep them employed through the entire thing. But it was a terrifying quiet that took over the restaurant, where we were so used to this busy in and out of hundreds of people a day, and suddenly we're sitting there and we're doing to-go business, and you're maybe selling 10 hamburgers, and you're so happy to make them, and you're like, here's your hamburger, thank you. You just can't even thank people enough for buying a hamburger, and you're just, all I could see was my dream slipping through my fingers. Everything we'd worked for, we were on the verge of, was slipping through my fingers, and I just didn't want it to happen. And I felt, and my team felt so much anxiety of what is happening in the world. I mean, it was something that was on my radar actually in late January, early February. I was hearing about coronavirus, and I started to get a little panicked about it and thinking we need to set up to-go orders ahead of time. I mean, we did a lot of things everyone thought I was kind of Chicken Little screaming about it, but I really was nervous that something real was coming. Thank God it got us a jump start on that to-go and stuff. But because the to-go business wasn't too much, we started thinking about, like, what else can we do? What do we do with our day? Like, our day felt empty sitting there with 3 full-time employees and nothing to do. And we'd had a family contact us. It was the family from Krapf Legal, Krapf Legal, and they said, we want to send a meal to the ER. Would you be willing to take food to Mies Countryside in their doctors? And I said, yeah, let me figure out how. I don't know how this is going to work yet, but let me make some calls. I'm going to reach out, and yes, of course I'll do this. And at that time, no one kind of knew what we were dealing with. So I was in PPE from head to toe. I mean, I might as well have gone in a garbage bag. I just was, it was terrifying. I saw Contagion once too many times. I don't know. So, but we put together about 30 burgers, and our bootlegger French fries are covered with bacon and ranch and all this fun stuff, and sodas and desserts and all these things. And we brought them to Mies Countryside. We called and scheduled this delivery. And this is before anybody was really doing this yet. And the doctors and nurses that came out to receive it were so overwhelmed at the gesture. They were so happy that someone cared enough to bring this to them. And they were just like, they just looked shocked and taken aback by it. And it brought tears to my eyes. And I felt like, this is really meaningful. Like, it's a burger, but it's not a burger. It was the community saying, hey, we see what you're going through. We want to help you. And it was a meaningful moment in my life. And it felt like, this is what I need to do. It was a real clear light that this is what I want to do. And so we put out the call on social media and we put out the pictures and said, hey, we just did this and we want to do more of this. If you are sitting at home and have the means to sponsor a meal and don't know where else to put your energy right now, help us and we'll coordinate this and we will do all the deliveries ourselves. And so I was able to hire back my events director and got her to be in charge of keeping these intricate spreadsheets, and people would donate $5 or $10. And we were able to sell meals under our menu price, just above cost. So I had a little bit of money to hire her back, but to organize this. And so she contacted every hospital in the Tri-County area, basically, found out the units and how many people were on the units and who the coordinator was for that hospital. And so I didn't want to do any deliveries in which we couldn't feed everyone at the same time. I didn't want to leave anybody out. So, and we did from janitorial staff to the phlebotomy staff to whoever it was, who hasn't been getting the night shift. I would do night shift. We'd do a delivery at 10 at night. It didn't matter because they're not getting anything, right? Yeah. So how do we spread the love just beyond the ER, but make sure that telemetry, who's helping the cancer patients, who needs some extra love that's in a hospital that's probably feeling terrified about what's happening too. Right. And so just the organization that Courtney did to track all of these individual donations and group them together and find a location that had the right number of people there and then schedule the delivery and get us so we could get the food out and set it there on time. And it was an involved process, but we did it easily 100 times, and we did it throughout the next few months. We did just tons of these deliveries. I went to every hospital. I got to know all of the administrators at all of them. We started doing break rooms for essential workers. So we did Publix break rooms, we did Lowe's break rooms, anyone who was still working in drugstores, things like that we could bring them food. We did that as well. We did fire stations, we did police stations, Sunstar paramedics. We've been there a few times, and the paramedics were fun because we had to drop it off individualized boxes, and they all have a central hub they go to. So we came in with just crates of tons of meals, and they would come in with their ambulances and load up their trucks and head out again with their lunch. So it became just the staple of what we did every day. How many deliveries are we doing today? Who are we hitting? Who can we contact? And then we started reaching out to a lot of corporate sponsors as well. So like if a bank wanted to send a meal, this would be a way that they could do it, and we would take pictures, and they would help cover the entire cost of that meal. They would sponsor it themselves. They'd be exclusive sponsor. I would take the pictures. They could send it to their community and say, hey, here's what we were doing to help today. And that would inspire more donations and more people to get involved. And so it became its own kind of business. I mean, and I was pitting banks against you. Hey, these guys are doing it over here. You guys want to get on that too? They're sending what they're doing, and meanwhile, we're the ones who are doing all these deliveries. I did every one of them myself, and I enjoyed the hell out of all of it. It was the highlight of my day, every day.
Oh, that is so great.
It was really fun. The crazy part, so we're posting all these things on Facebook, and people are appreciating it, and then there's always going to be one in every comment section. So someone says, well, that's great, but all those people have jobs, and I don't have a job. So it's not like you're doing anything for anyone who's unemployed. And at first I'm annoyed because there's going to be, there's one in every comment section. And then I sat with what she said, and I thought, she's right. These guys do have jobs, and they can afford food. I'm trying to show appreciation, but is there something we can do? Can I reach out further? Is there something we can do for people who don't have income right now, who are laid off maybe for the first time? And so we started our first couple weekends of doing free lunch for anyone who wasn't working. So I got my board of directors together, any staff I could get together, and we made these huge bag lunches and crates of them, and we set up a tent station at the end of the street in front of the restaurant, and we had people drive through, and we just passed lunches out into their car windows and let them, it was on our system. If you needed a lunch and you weren't working, come grab a free lunch. And then we took anything left over and delivered it to the homeless shelters. And so there was just no waste I didn't want to waste anything. I wanted to make as much impact as humanly possible for as low cost as I could. And that's what we did.
That is amazing. Thank you for everything that you did for the community.
Thank you to the community that let us do it. It was a place to put our anxious energy on those during that time.
It kind of keeps your mind off of what's happening, and also making you feel good as you're helping other people. How did that impact your business? So now we're, a couple months coming out of this. Do people still remember? Has that helped your business, bring in more people? Yes, and it was not our intention. We didn't do it we did it because we needed to do something at that time. But it was really the first people who came in. Little kid. We have some kids. We had to apologize. I have a lot of nice panels in here, but it doesn't stop the screaming kids. Normally the studio's downstairs, but they decided that they were doing a photo shoot up here the same time as our podcast. So that's why you hear screaming kids in the background.
Listen, I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. That's the soundtrack of my life. I am used to this. Much like most working moms, we are used to multitasking over those sounds. Doesn't even faze me.
We're just talking right over it, no big deal. But a few of the screams, we're like, we can do this, and then all of a sudden it's like,
The amount of meetings I've taken, Zoom meetings, where I'm passing snacks down to someone on the ground, trying to keep a dog out of frame. We're all used to it. We can roll with it.
Yeah, we absolutely can. It's funny.
It's good to acknowledge. But no, the number of people that came in, it's so funny that said, I haven't been to there's a good one. Yeah. I haven't been to a restaurant since the shutdown happened, but this is the first place I wanted to go. You came to our break room at Publix, and I want to be there I just wanted to come personally and say thank you. And so many people we were their first stop, and that was really an honor to me. I think throughout the pandemic, we leaned heavily into safety. We didn't get political or anything, but we followed the CDC really clearly, and we took, when we had the option to err on the side of safety or not, we always went safety. So there were a lot of people who only felt comfortable coming to Gigglewaters and learned about us from what we were doing in the community, and saw we had installed far-field UVC lights in all of our air conditioning, who saw we were masked and gloved when gloves were the recommendation at that time, and who saw the space seating. And we just tried to be community-minded in everything we did, not just in feeding people, but in helping to stop the spread as much as possible. I mean, being aggressive in testing our staff. We had split for quite a period of time. We had split our team into 2 entire separate groups. So we call them the good fellas and the usual suspects, because everything is movie themed. one group who worked Monday through Thursday doubles and one that worked Friday through Sunday doubles. And so that way, if we had an exposure, I could shut down one team, test the entire group, let the other group come in after we had sanitized and do doubles. So we just, everything I did was, how do we protect the community? How do we take care of the community? And I absolutely have felt the support back from them in this past year. And that's been mind-blowing to me.
I also loved your outdoor space, what you were able to create, such a large outdoor seating area. Because I remember we came there several times when there's a lot of other restaurants that you couldn't go to because they didn't have outdoor seating, or maybe a large enough one where you had a nice, it was also the beautiful ambiance with the lighting and everything you turned it into was really spectacular.
Thank you. You know what, that was due to the kindness of our landlord. That's the truth. He allowed us to spread out off of our patio onto the grass next to it and space our tables so we could really not, we used to do communal seating, which was big long tables, and he sat next to strangers, and this was a moment in history where no one wanted to sit by a stranger. So being able to break our tables up and make some room and have a big tent for shade was, and then for heat, to be able to trap in some of the heat during the winter, it was a lifesaver. And we actually, I'm sad to say that in 2 days from now we are tomorrow. It's tomorrow. We have to take our tents down and move back on our patio. But I am grateful for this past year of being able to space so much. So we're getting some smaller tables so people will still be able to sit a little more isolated than they did before. But we are pulling back onto our original patio. But we will keep our good lighting. There's at least good lighting. That always helps. Yes.
Well, you did such a great job with that.
Thank you.
We thought you deserved to have something be given to you out of all the people that you gave to during that time period.
Kelly brought me to tears. We didn't do a thing for recognition. We did a thing out of desperation and anxiety, to be honest with you. I mean, I just couldn't shut my mind off all night long. What do we do? How do we help? How do I keep this business alive? How do I not lose everything? We put our house up to buy the business. We did so that. I just wanted to do something meaningful, and to see it, to be recognized for that in any kind of way was beyond what we ever would have considered having happened. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're so welcome. Welcome. And it sounds like you're getting it back from the community as well. And there's, a lot of people just shut their doors and they didn't do anything. And it's kind of hard to come back from that afterwards.
I can't imagine if you had lost the momentum for the people, even that for a couple of weeks had to shut down or a couple of months had to shut down. When you lose that day-to-day momentum, it is so hard to get the gears going again. You got to keep putting one foot in front of the other every day.
It's like starting over.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So how long have you been in business now with Gigglewaters?
We just had our 3-year anniversary. Yeah.
Congratulations.
We're three-nagers. Thank you. Yes.
So starting a business, and this is what I always like to, my theme of my podcast is learning curves. And I started this podcast because I've been in business for 23 years. And I know there's so many different twists and turns and things that we take along the way. I know, right now, me personally, I've owned my agency, CEA, for 23 years. I've just started 2 new business ventures this past year with the studio that we're sitting in right now, Second Soul Studios, and also my 2 funky hippie clothing line. And I just felt like, I've had the digital company for so long. I just wanted to have something else to kind of inspire me. Starting new things kind of helps keep the creative juices going.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people sometimes feel like they can be stuck and they don't know which way to go, or they think they can do something. Do you want to tell me a little bit about your personal side of?
Sure. Yes. I never thought I would own a restaurant. My husband and I are definitely serial entrepreneurs. He has a million creative ideas. Some of them are terrible. Some of them are he'll be going to the bathroom in the morning and he'll honey, I have an idea. What if you could pee and brush your teeth? And I'm just stop right there. I don't know where you're going, but it's not going to end anywhere good. But that's the same man who invented Shittens, the wet wipe shaped like a mitten that was pitched to Mark Cuban on the Stern Show, goes viral, sells out every Christmas. So he has lots of crazy ideas, and I am an execution person. So he's the idea person, I'm the execution person. It's a good partnership for that reason. We worked in television for a long time. We worked for the Howard Stern Show. He was a senior broadcast producer. I was a TV host. And that was our life in New York City. And when the TV contract ended with Howard, he was doing Howard TV, and that ended, we had to kind of decide what we wanted to do. And he stayed in the industry for a little bit. He went and worked for Diddy at Revolt, and we came down here and he was going to do some stuff with HSN, and we just didn't know what we wanted. We know that we wanted to be out of New York City. We had 2 babies, 1 baby, and I was pregnant at the time, and And we just wanted a yard and a place for a dog to run and a different upbringing than being in Manhattan or in Brooklyn. And so, we moved to Safety Harbor and we loved it. And we missed our old hangouts in New York. We missed our old haunts. We missed going out somewhere sexy and getting a drink. And we just thought, what if we did our own thing? What if we made our own thing? Like, what would that look like? And we kicked around a lot of ideas. We thought about doing a wine and cheese shop that had some exotic chocolates. That was kind of one of the things we went for a little bit in that direction. And we thought about doing something. We both are huge dog lovers, and we thought about doing something with dogs, like a boarding or a doggy daycare kind of thing. We thought about that for a while and how we had some clever ideas on that, what we would do. And then ultimately, I think Gigglewaters was ideal. It was a real combination of the two of us. The name was his, Gigglewater, which is the old prohibition term for alcohol. Right. And that vibe that night, we share a similar aesthetic. So we knew exactly, without even talking about it, we knew what it would look like. We knew how we would make it look. But he was real specific from the flocked wallpaper to exactly what the lighting and the ceiling tiles would be. And we just, we decided, let's do this crazy thing and open a restaurant and let's talk to my dad, and maybe he can come in with us and kind of hold our hand a little bit on how we do the initial ordering and how the setup works and how do we build out a kitchen, what does that look like, how many permits do we need, what would be involved in that. And we had found a space that in a building that we thought really fit the vibe of what we wanted to do even before we knew exactly what we wanted to do. And we had talked to the owner of the building and said, if anything ever comes available in here, we're just putting out feelers at this point. Here's my email. Let me know. Give him a phone number. Give me a call and let me know. And he called a week later and said, I do have a space that's coming available. Do you want to talk about it? And so all of a sudden it went from like a pie in the sky idea to like, oh man, this is go time. Like if we're going to do this, this is it. Right. And we signed a lease, which was crazy. And we were having no idea how we were going to do it. And then we just started putting one foot in front of the other, and suddenly we had a restaurant. So yeah, that was, wow. It was, there was a lot of mess in there between the lease and opening. There was a lot of mess in there. It was a lot of heartache and difficulty. And oh man, there was a period in which we spent 3 months waiting for the city and the fire chief to come up with a plan on something called a smoke wall, something I'd never heard of before. Wow. In which there has to be a wall that has a 2-hour burn that separates fire from one unit to the unit next to us, which happened to be a hair salon. And so even though it was an old building, it was a very complicated situation. We couldn't even move forward on the construction until they had a plan that they had approved for the smoke wall. And it was a $20,000 wall that we had to put in that was not budgeted, right? So that's the kind of stuff that you're not only losing 3 months of build out time and you've got to come up with an extra 20 for the smoke wall and pay the architects more for the design. It was just that kind of stuff. It was kind of like one of those, and I remember, we opened in May of 18, and I remember getting close, there was a point in December where the bank was starting to pull our funding because we were behind schedule. We were significantly, they just didn't know if we were going to open in time and what was going to happen. And so, we opened in May of 19, I believe. So it was May of 18. Yeah, we started November 17. I signed the lease, and it took us a year and a half of build out. So we opened in May of 19. So in December of 19, we were about to lose funding. We had to stop. We had to come back to the bank with a plan of not taking a paycheck for ourselves from our SBA loans, not restructuring how we were going to use all the money, with a plan to say we can get open, because they were afraid if we keep allowing you to use this SBA money, you're going to run out in time. You're not going to be open. You're so far behind schedule because of the smoke wall and everything else. You're not going to make it. And it was almost like careening towards a wall in front of you and not knowing if the brakes were going to work or on an airplane, is it going to take off at that last second before you hit the water? We were within a month of running out of money when we got the doors open. And it was a terrifying couple months where we were just like, anything we could do to get open faster, to do things cheaper, to get cheaper silverware than maybe, the initial dream of your beautiful plates. I'd just get a plate. I don't care. Just get the doors open. We can make it fancier later, whatever we have to do. So yeah, it was, thank God we got the doors open when we did, and thank God the turnout was great, even though, there were lots of hiccups in that initial opening. There's lots of, you don't know what you're doing until you know what you're doing, right? So there's a lot of oh my God, we can't get the food out fast enough, or there's so many hurdles that you just run into in those first couple months where you're figuring out how to do this, it's sink or swim. And thank God we swam, and the money came back, and we were able to pay our bills and pay the vendors that extended us some credit and pay back the bank that had loaned us a little extra, and we made it. And so many people don't. And I think that was a hard way to get going. Yes, it was challenging for sure.
Yeah, leave it to the city to hold you up.
Oh my God, yes.
Took me about year and a half with this, and we had one thing after another happening with it.
That's what and you can't really plan for that stuff, right? I mean, you think, and you get the quote from your construction guy, and you think it's going to be a 6-month job, and you'll be open on the 7th month, and it's just never the way. There's always going to be unexpected hiccups, and we had to put in the space we took over was a yoga studio, so we had to put we had nothing. There was no kitchen, there was no hood system, there was no grease traps, and none of that stuff. So we had to plumb out the entire space and add the bar and there was an error in the drawings on the bar that had it at twice the width that it was actually written at, and so there are all those kinds of things that came up along the way that definitely made it complicated.
A lot of costs that come up along the way.
Oh my gosh, the costs. Oh my gosh. It's just like Monopoly money at some point. Like, I don't know, here's another 10,000. That's fun. I've spent money in that kind of manner.
I think this place is probably 50,000 over budget.
It just happens.
This was my billing to begin with, and what if I'm spending another 50?
How does it happen? Where does it go? I know. It's ridiculous.
So I'm like, well, I hope it works. Otherwise, it's going to be a very expensive apartment for someone.
Either way. But at some point, you're in for a penny, in for a pound, right? Like once you've rolled the dice, there's no stopping it. Yep. You're in, the wind is at your back. And the worst thing you can do is drag heels in. You have to just roll with it.
Oh, you have to go.
You got to go.
Keep that positive attitude.
That's it.
Make this work.
Right. You don't have to. I think that the second you dig too heavily into contingency plans, you allow for an opportunity in which you're not going to reach your goals, right? So you have to stay focused on, okay, hit a wall, course correct, is what I tell myself all the time. When you hit the wall, you course correct. Okay, here's this wall, we're going to go around it this way. So finding those areas that maybe aren't working out the way that you planned, so what's the alternative? Like, failure.
Always an alternative.
Right. You're not going to fold into yourself and crumble up and die, right? You don't get to do that.
Nope.
You don't get to take your ball and go home. Fix it. Figure it out. And there's going to be a workaround. It might not be perfect, and you might be pissed that you have to do it this way, but this is what we do, and we can make it better later. It's fine.
And you learned, and you won't do that again next time.
So many things that we learned along the way. So many things. I mean, one of the things is that I think I learned early on is that the things that you think you would like as a patron do not always make the sense as the things that you would like to do as a business owner, right? So like we had sliders, hot dog and hamburger sliders on the menu when we first opened, because we were like, that'd be so cool. You can mix and match all these fun burgers. Like, who wants to pick one burger when you can pick 3? I want to try them all. It sounds really fun. Terrible for execution. I mean, you would have, first of all, we're using Wagyu beef, and it's a 6-ounce burger. So on a slider, you have 3 2-ounce burgers, which are little hard hockey pucks because you can't even cook meat. It's gonna overcook so quickly because they're so tiny. And then the amount of work it would take for the kitchen to put out. If 2 people ordered the sliders, so they're making 6 burgers, it's the equivalent of them making 6 dinners, right? Because they've got to prep and dress those burgers like 6 different burgers. And then the people, you'd send it and they would like 2 of them, but they didn't really like the 3rd one. And then you feel like you have to replace that 3rd one. It just was a logistical nightmare on the kitchen. It just complicated everything times 3. So those are the things that you learn very quickly, and you're like, oh, no, I would love it. Someone else can do that and I will visit their restaurant, but I cannot execute this effectively and make people like us. So, yeah, you have to just take those lessons and adapt in real time for sure.
Yep. Something works, try something else. See if
Right,
that works.
right. When it doesn't, don't let your ego get hung up on it, and you let it go and go in a different direction.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it all works out at the end. You just got to have patience.
Yes.
Is there any other piece of advice that you would give someone, like as far as starting their own company?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is you can't let yourself get hung up on what the end goal is, or you will face a paralysis, right? Like if I had thought at the beginning of all of the things I know now, from the P&L management to the ordering to the inventories to the how we do our dry storage to prep lists to, I mean, there is so much involved in running a business. I was barely a server. I mean, I didn't know how to do any of this stuff. I didn't know how to bartend, how to how to make a martini, none of that. And if I had thought about the end, I never would have started at the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's important to have the vision and know where you're going, but you don't have to be in that paralysis of that you have to know everything before you start. You just have to start. You just have to do one thing. Do the one small thing in your grasp that you can do today and knock it out. And eat the frog for breakfast. Eat the difficult thing in the morning. Do the hardest thing first. Okay, I've got to figure out today with the DVPR how I get a license. I have no idea. I'm going to call them and I'm going to say, how do I get a license? I don't even know the question I'm asking them, right? But that's where I start. So you just do that first little thing that you can wrap your head around, and then from that thing there's going to be 10 more things to do anyway, right? So you're going to do that. then you're going to get to the next step. And if you keep just putting one foot in front of the other without getting terribly overwhelmed, you can get to the end point before you realize it. And I think that that's an important thing, that all the path the work begets work and action begets action, and it will take you to where you're going without paralyzing yourself about thinking too far ahead. Just stay in the moment and get something done right now. What can I take off my to-do list right now?
Great advice.
That's what I think is important.
Yeah.
And I think it's important too. I used to have a college professor, Jim Helsinger, who was amazing. I went to UCF for my undergrad in theater, and he used to congratulate us when we failed spectacularly. And so instead of feeling this fear of failure, when you would stumble on your lines or make a dumb choice or do something terrible, he would go, "You failed!" And we would all go, "I failed!" And we would throw our arms up and we would clap and like, "We were the worst, that was terrible!" And we would clap for ourselves for being the worst, right? Yeah. And so it took the sting off of feeling dumb in front of someone or feeling like you're a failure. And that was always really helpful to me. It's just to like embrace like, oh man, I blew that. And I have really,
I love that.
I think
to remember that.
It's helpful to just like celebrate your failures. Like, because, if you look at over a long enough timeline, you might have, and I used to think this when I used to do acting stuff, that if I went on let's say I got a job every 10 jobs, I needed to fail at 9 auditions to get my 10. So cool, let me get that failure under my belt so I can get on to the next one to get the next, so I can get to the job I'm going to get, right? And it's the same way here. So get your failures, celebrate them like, ooh, man, those sliders, worst idea we ever had. Just terrible. Good for us for trying. What are we doing next? And that way you don't take things personally or let them dissuade you that all of your instincts are wrong. No, you're going to have some shit ideas and you're going to try it. It's not going to work and you're going in a different direction. And that's not a thing to be afraid of. That's a thing to celebrate, that you had the guts to try something cool and it either worked or didn't work, but it's going to give you the confidence to do the next thing. So I think, I think just being okay looking dumb. You know what I mean? Like,
I think that people have a hard time with that.
That is something, and maybe that hits at 40, but that part of you that isn't afraid to be dumb in front of other people, like and it wasn't there when I was younger. I felt like I had to be the expert at everything. I was, for a long time, before I worked in TV, I worked in supplemental education, and I was often the youngest executive in the room, and I felt this sense of having to prove myself by like knowing everything and being on top of everything. And as I've gotten older, I don't have that at all. I have this part of me that relaxes into like, no, I know what I'm good at, I'm really good at, but I surround myself with people who are better at me at other stuff. And I'm not afraid to say, oh man, I don't know how to do a damn thing. And your guess is as good as mine. Like, I don't know, can we call someone? I'm not even sure where to start looking for that answer. And I'm not afraid that people are sitting back and judging me like, wow, she doesn't know anything about that, about gins. I know nothing about gins. They really taste like rubbing alcohol to me. I don't get it at all. But I'm not afraid to own a bar that has great gins, and I hire somebody who can curate that program and that is so passionate about gins and that looks at gins the way I look at marketing or something else. Do you know what I mean? That if you have people who have that fire in the belly for the things that aren't your things, then you're all stronger for it. And you don't diminish somebody. I never want to put someone else's candle out to make mine burn brighter. I want to lift people with me, and I want to grow with them. And so finding people who have passion but haven't had the opportunity to be at a leadership role in a bar and to curate a bar program or to curate a chef that hasn't had a chance to run a kitchen of this size, that stuff is exciting to me. That stuff is exciting because I can help give people a chance, people who aren't ego-driven, who can look outside themselves and either are passionate but maybe need some help organizing or need, like, what are the areas that I can support them in so that they can take this passion and make us the best that we can be.
Right.
That's kind of an operating principle for me.
Oh, me too. That's important. I have a lot of kids they've gone to college, and a lot of times they don't know what they want to do. And I might see something in them, and hey, have you ever thought about going into marketing before? Well, no. I go, I think you might. I think you have something there. Why don't you come over and work at the agency, and let's see if we can find a hidden talent that you might have.
Isn't that the best feeling?
It is the best feeling. You can like pulse. They had no idea, they were lost, and all of a sudden we found, something that they were really great at.
Yep. My assistant general manager right now, this girl named Heather Meneses, who's wonderful and I adore. I've known her for years. She was actually a babysitter for me for years and years, and she was just like the best. So when I was building this, she was the second mom who was taking the kids so I could run to the office and figure out what I was doing. She was as much a part of our family as my kids, And she went off and after that became a boat captain and chartered 50-ton boats and was a female in the boating industry, in which there aren't a lot of female captains. And she just always had that personality to me that would just be so right for the service industry. She is, we joke that she's real life server voice. There's a server voice you have where you're like, hey guys, that's her in real life, right? Right. So saying to her and sitting down and saying, like, have you considered a career in this? Like this, you have such great problem solving skills and people skills. And I could just see you going so far in this. And she is promoted and promoted and promoted to be now the second in charge at my restaurant, and someone who I see long-term career path for, because she's just excellent in that capacity. So yeah, it's really inspiring when you can help someone find a path in that way.
I pulled this one over here and.
Excellent.
It's like, I don't know what I want to do. Come work at the agency. Right, Brenna?
Yeah, there's so many things that I could see myself doing, but I just don't know yet.
And I think you don't have to know yet. You know what I mean? I think that
know.
It's what's cool about, I think, your 20s is dipping your toe in a lot of different pools and figuring out like what feels good, and knowing that you can say yes to anything, because from saying yes, you'll have a new vantage point from which to say yes to a different thing or yes to a different thing. You don't have to go on one path. You can, every time you say yes and try something new, you have a new position in which you can say yes or no to the next thing, right? And so it's never, I remember in my 20s feeling a little bit trapped. I had promoted, I'd taken a job, I was an actor in LA, and I had taken a job as a center director for a Sylvan Learning Center. And I promoted very quickly, and suddenly I was a vice president of one of the largest franchisees and running New York City of that company. Wow. Right, and I was like, wait, how did this happen? I didn't choose this. I didn't pick this thing. This is weird.
That's funny.
Right, and then I went to their competitors and a different competitor, and suddenly I'm a VP of U.S. operations running the franchise turnarounds for a Canadian company. So these things happen sometimes without you're knowing it, because you're good at something, right? And while I made a different pivot and went in a different direction career-wise and kind of went back to what my heart wanted, those skills that I had acquired from doing that have served me so well today in business. Like all things kind of for a reason, right? Like
everything comes around.
It comes around full circle. And I mean, you think that you leave being a supplemental education VP to go and I went and made a CD and went and worked on TV and did travel and did ghost hunting for Travel Channel, a bunch of other crazy stuff. And now I own a haunted restaurant, by the way, and we do ghost hunts there. I sure didn't plan on that piece of it.
And you haven't shot yourself in the foot yet.
I have not shot myself in the foot. That's a good thing. But you use all of those business skills, it all comes together. And so there's no wrong answer. There's just different experiences that serve you over the course of your lifetime.
Absolutely. Wow.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. Wow, some great insight and advice for our listeners, and we loved hearing more about your business.
My absolute pleasure. It was so fun.
Appreciate you being on my show.
I loved it. Thank you so much.
At CEA Marketing, we take your business, your passion, and your why, and we sell it. If you're unsure where to start marketing your company, CEA Marketing is here to help. Our team at CEA has tons of experience and top-notch training, which helps you take all the stress and confusion out of marketing your own business. After years of working with large companies like Pulte Homes, the Outback Bowl, and Metro Places, we guarantee the successful implementation of a marketing strategy.